Labadiena visiems. Ką tik baigėme neformalią energetikos ministrų.
Good afternoon, colleagues. We have just finished an informal energy council, and I'd like to give the floor to Minister Neverovic and Commissioner Oettinger to present the results. Minister, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We had a very fruitful ministerial discussion today as well as yesterday. Yesterday, we focused on the external dimension of the energy policy, and we talked about the need for greater coordination among the member states in our external relations. We need to strengthen our position vis-à-vis our foreign partners, and we need to seek more beneficial results for our consumers and businesses. Member states agreed that we need to create a level playing field for competition for EU energy producers and third country energy producers, which function in the common EU energy market. We also discussed the participation in the energy market of foreign countries and its impact on our situation and on our market, and we agreed to come back to these topics in December in the Energy Council in Brussels. Today's session started with a discussion on the creation of the internal market and what is needed to complete the creation of the internal market by the end of the next year. We stressed that it is necessary to implement the third package in all member states, and we emphasized the need to integrate the so-called energy islands in the internal market. One of the tools to achieve that is the new list of projects of common interest, the PCI projects. We also raised the idea that consumers must become active players on the EU energy market. Our wish is to see this sector, the energy sector, focused on the consumer. We also discussed the situation related to state aid and subsidies, and we came to a conclusion that sometimes it is needed. However, it should not be allowed to distort competition on the market. We also agreed that it is high time that we phased out subsidies in this sector. We must also strive to achieve to stop any distortions of the EU energy market from external suppliers, and the role of the Commission is very important in this context. And the third session was devoted to EU climate policy and energy policy up to 2030. The Commissioner presented the results of the public consultation, which took place on the basis of the Green Paper in this area, and the member states expressed their positions, which were as follows. We need to find an optimum decision on how to transition to low-carbon economies. We must safeguard the competitiveness of our industries and to avoid additional burden for consumers. And also, we need to learn the lessons from the past, learn from experience, and to make an assessment of our previous strategy. Now I'd like to give the floor to Commissioner Oettinger to give his assessment of our meeting.
Herr Minister, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren.
Minister, ladies and gentlemen, the Energy Council that took place yesterday and today in Vilnius gave us an opportunity to look at European energy policy and at our goals for 2020 and 2030, together with the member states and the national governments. On all points that we discussed, it emerged that there is a broad consensus We are all in favor of greater Europeanization of energy policy. There were hardly any positions against. For the Commission, the most important thing that we discussed today was that we must continue to look beyond 2020. We must look beyond 2020 and hold intensive discussions on what will happen after then. Alongside other instruments, the instrument provided by the 2020 goals for our energy and climate policies, along with the emissions trading system, must be a focus of our European policy. There was broad agreement that this European energy and climate protection policy must be maintained and pursued. At the same time, new goals for 2030 must be discussed. There was also wide agreement that a new, realistic CO2 emissions reduction goal is necessary, looking towards 2030. And based on today's discussions, we will begin developing a proposal to that end. There were opinions for and against developing a new goal for renewable energies. There was also some disagreement about which form this should take. When it came to energy efficiency, that is, energy savings, in this area, we have a directive that's 1 year old. It's being implemented in the member states. In June of next year, we will have a report on the results of our efforts so far based on this directive. We come away from this meeting with a great deal of constructive and helpful advice, which the Commission will take into account in drafting its proposals. The theme of expansion of energy infrastructure, projects of common interest, LNG terminals, pipelines, what sort of infrastructure we actually need was another subject of discussion. Lithuania is a perfect example of a member state with good arguments in favor of investing in infrastructure. This investment is necessary if you want to reach energy goals, be they energy supply security or a smoothly functioning market with competition. How can we achieve better energy prices, fairer energy prices? All these issues are linked to the expansion of energy infrastructure and with the involvement of all 28 member states in the European energy market. We need to also to have a common external energy policy vis-à-vis countries with which we have energy-based relationships, from which we obtain energy, Russia, countries of the Middle East. We agreed that developing shared positions concerning the continuation of our external energy policy is in the interest of all member states. This as well is a theme that's very important for Lithuania and for our relations with Russia and Ukraine. Here in the Baltic region, this is a very important theme. All in all, this was a very constructive meeting, which took place in a very constructive atmosphere. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister and Commissioner. And now, time for questions, and please introduce yourself.
Klausimų nėra. Lietuvos televizija, prašau.
No questions? Lithuanian television channel. And please use the microphone. Good afternoon. I'm Joanna Lapenė from Lithuanian TV. Question to the Commissioner. After the meeting with Gazprom executive Mr. Miller, Lithuanian government declared that it is ready to buy the shares from Gazprom and Aeon Energy if it is necessary. Can we expect the European Commission support if it will be huge expenditure?
Wir sind zu allen Fragen der
Well,
Infrastruktur
on all questions of infrastructure, here in this region, from Finland
Lettland, Estland,
to
Litauen bis nach
Latvia, Lithuania, Poland,
stimmen uns ab.
well, we've been in close contact with our interlocutors, and
Entwicklung der
it's
Infrastruktur und durch die Umsetzung unserer
vital that the
Binnenmarktregeln,
further
Stichwort
expansion of our energy infrastructure and development of our internal energy market must involve unbundling. This will improve the energy supply situation of the region, and it will also influence
sinkenden Preisen.
price development on the gas market. In fact, it will
Wir
lead
glauben,
to
dass
lower
hierfür
prices.
zuallererst
We
Fragen der
think
Ordnungspolitik notwendig sind. Wir glauben, dass
that
Investitionen
first
zuallererst vom Markt,
we
von Privatinvestoren kommen sollen. Aber
feel that investment must first and foremost come from private sources, from the market.
Europe Facility,
With our Connecting
das
Europe
von
facility,
2014 bis 2020
which is in effect
Jahre Möglichkeiten der
from
Kofinanzierung
2014
gibt.
to 2020, there is a possibility for co-financing. The European Parliament and the European Council adopted this program several years ago. This provides us with an instrument for co-financing in countries where market financing alone would not be sufficient, and where market financing requires support from co-financing from other sources to prevent price increases. This is something that's been discussed with the member states, and we're developing a list of projects that will be eligible for this co-financing.
Прошу Reuters. Reuters, please.
Andresitos Reuters. I have a question for Mr. Commissioner. Reports say that list of priority European energy projects which will be announced by the Commission soon includes Nabucco West pipeline, but does not include South Stream pipeline. Can you comment on why the South Stream pipeline was excluded from this list, and maybe you can describe what other important projects are on this list?
Diese Liste
This list of our European projects, which are of common interest, known as Projects of Common Interest, PCIs, has been a subject of intensive consultation in recent months. We've consulted with member states in the affected regions, with our network operators, with DSOs, with industry, and with our INSO-E and INSO-G, the associations of network operators. We expect approval from the Commission of this list in October, and this list lists projects that would be eligible for funding under the Connecting Europe facility. South Stream is an idea that comes from our Eastern partners. We have no problems with South Stream, but we don't think that it's a particular EU priority. South Stream doesn't encompass any new sources of supply. It's an adjunct to existing pipelines. for example, the one through Ukraine or the one through Belarus, such as Nord Stream. South Stream is an addition, but it doesn't give us access to any new sources of energy, and it also does not increase the competitiveness of the energy market within the European Union. So we are considering South Stream in a very fair and partnership-based manner, but we have to think about environmental legislation, procurement rules. We have nothing against South Stream, but it's not a priority for the European Union.
Good afternoon. Aiste Romanete, LNK Television. A question to the Minister Neverovic on internal market. Yesterday, two different opinions were presented commenting on Gazprom position. Our president said that the negotiations are not taking place, while our Prime Minister Butkevičius said that the negotiations should finish by the beginning of the heating season. What is your take on it? Thank you for your question. I wouldn't want to comment on specific things that are confidential for the time being. I can only say that the government is very constructively disposed. We are doing everything to implement the third energy package in Lithuania. We see that our consumers pay an exaggerated price for energy. We see a lot of alternatives for the solution of these problems, and so we encourage our partners to be as constructive as we are. I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to comment. I only repeat that the government is constructive and is doing everything for diversification, and we're doing everything to cut on energy and gas prices.
Hi, I'm Luis Santoso of the Spanish newspaper ABC. I would like to know Mr. Oettinger's opinion about the last measures taken in Spain about energy policies and renewables, and later on if 2020 goals are at risk for Spain right now. Thank you very much.
Wir sind mit der spanischen Regierung in einer
Well, as concerns the Spanish government, we've been in close contact with them, and the Spanish government knows that, as for all other member states, the agreed goals for the energy mix for Spain, for this country as all others, for 2020 must be reached. As concerns renewables, Spain in 2009, 2010, and 2011, Spain has done more in the area of renewables, installed more capacity than was actually necessary. And we'll be monitoring what Spain does in the coming years to achieve its goal year by year. Furthermore, we provide advice to the government when it undertakes legislative changes, particularly as concerns subsidies. Subsidy for infrastructure is within the competence of national governments, and practices vary from one member state to another. One of our concerns relates to cuts that are enacted on a short-term basis, on short notice, and that might affect capacity that's already installed. We advise against such cuts. And the Spanish government is sensitive to all steps taken in this area. Currently, negotiations are going on in the Spanish Parliament, but we will analyze the results of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? BNS, you have the floor.
Baltic News Service, Martynas Burba. Vasarą skelbta, jog Seimui priėmus
In this summer, we have heard that since our parliament refused the 25% rule on liquefied gas terminal, the Commission will stop the investigation on Lithuania. When would such decision, when can such a decision be taken? And do you agree with the Parliament's decision? The question is addressed to the Commissioner.
Yes, we've had excellent working contact with the government in Lithuania. My Director General and the Ministry have been working in a very transparent manner. The country's energy policy is a very European one and a very constructive one. This is a case that is not the focus of our Commission work, and our experts in the Directorate General will continue to work upon this. And I have to say that, well, I can't say what will happen in the future. I don't have any overarching concerns. This was not dealt with in the note that was developed by my Director General.
I'd like to add something to what the Commissioner said. According to our information, no official investigation has been started. It was just a pilot project, a pilot process, which potentially could have ended in an investigation. So, in conclusion, we have been successful in avoiding that investigation. If there are any more questions, I'd like to give the floor to Reuters once again.
Andresidas, Reuters. I have one more question for Mr. Commissioner. The carbon emission target for 2030, which is now most often being talked about, is roughly 35% cut in carbon emissions, which is probably not enough to limit the global warming to 2% degrees Celsius, which is what most scientists say would limit the most damaging effects. Is the European Union in effect admitting defeat?
Yes, we have the 2-degree goal. We want to limit overall temperature rise to 2 degrees. The European Union has already reduced its CO2 emissions by 20%. We've done more than other regions of the world. We're very environmentally aware. We're working out a new CO2 reduction goal for 2030. We haven't yet decided on a figure. The 35% that you mentioned is one proposal, and today the member states' position on this issue was different. Therefore, no decision has yet been taken as to a specific goal. It seemed today that the member states agreed that the European Union's goal for reduction of CO2 emissions could also be conditional. When we're successful in Warsaw next year and in Paris the year after that, to reach agreements with industrialized countries and developing countries to make significant CO2 emission reductions. Here I'm talking about the US, China, India. When we can enter into agreements with them, then this will affect our goals as well.
Ačiū, laikas baigėsi. Ačiū visiems, ačiū komisarui, ačiū ministrui.
Thank you to all of you, Minister, the Commissioner. Time is up.